This is Stacking the Box with NFL insider Matt Verderame and Mark Carman. All right, Verderame, you're Mr. Chiefs. Y'all lose to Baltimore. Sunday Night Football, the whole world is watching. I was personally stunned. I thought even when the Chiefs got the ball back late, of course, I thought they were going to win the football game. Didn't turn out that way, though, pal.
I can honestly say I wasn't stunned. I thought going into the game, the Chiefs would do what they usually do with Baltimore, which is get up on them, force Baltimore out of the run game, and then slowly kind of constrict their offense. And the Chiefs got up, but they never got up by enough where Baltimore had to abandon that run game. You know, they were usually up by a score, and then Baltimore would come back and they'd make it really tight. And look, the obvious swing point of the game was when the Chiefs had, I think it was a 35-24 lead in the fourth, like you said, and the Chiefs had the ball at midfield. They get great field position. All they got to do there is drive 50 yards, which for them is nothing, and jam it in the end zone. The game's over. And Mahomes throws probably the worst pick of his career. I mean, when you factor in just the play and the situation, but I don't put it on their offense. I don't even put it on Edwards-Helaire. Like, I get it. If he doesn't fumble, they probably win. Butker's nails on almost every field goal he ever attempts. They can't stop anybody. I mean, at some point, like, you have to get off the field. They are giving up over 500 yards a game right now. So, to me, like, stop them. But I give the Ravens a lot of credit, man. All those injuries, banged up offensive line. I thought Jackson was one of the best games he's ever played. Give him a lot of credit. They found a way to win. They made all the plays.
There's no one more fun to watch on one particular play when he's doing what he does best than Lamar Jackson. It is in the NFL right now. He is the most exciting, most electrifying, most like, oh my God, I can't believe you just made that cut. And oh, by the way, you're insanely fast too. And you'll do a flip into the end zone when you don't have to, just for a little extra. I mean, those quarterbacks are never built to last, but it's borderline amazing that he's made it this far, right? I mean, really.
Look, I don't think he's a great stereotypical quarterback, right? He doesn't throw the ball amazingly well. I mean, everybody's going nuts. Look, he did not throw the ball particularly well in that football game. I mean, he made the throws he should have made, but he threw two picks, one of which wasn't his fault. The pick six, Watkins fell down. The other pick was a horrible throw into triple coverage, but he's very, very hard to defend. He is singular in his unique talent, and that's why he is, in my opinion, a top 10 quarterback. I mean,
well, and I give John Harbaugh just a ton of credit.
No doubt.
You have a guy like that. Most coaches, particularly the one that I watch every week in Chicago, you try to box him in. We can't play like this. It's too unconventional. Whatever BS they would come up with. This is not the offense that I came to run in the NFL, Matt Nagy. This is my, they don't do that. And then Harbaugh's, clip with him, hey, Lamar, you want to go for it on the fourth down in their own territory? And Lamar says yes. Even that, like, I'm not trying to be Johnny Genius, like, you guys go for it. He leans on his players in the biggest moment. John Harbaugh's awesome. Flat out awesome.
John Harbaugh is a great coach. I think he's incredibly underrated. I'd say the same thing. They lost that game. Look, I will say, I don't think that was a hard decision, though, to go for that there. If you punt the ball to the Chiefs, you're probably losing, right? Like, it took a miracle to get the fumble, which, by the way, okay, I don't blame Edwards-Helaire for losing that game. I really don't. Like, they couldn't stop anybody the entire night. That's on their defense. You give up 36 points, you're the reason you lost. That being said, on that play, you have to know the only way you're probably going to lose this game is you fumbling. And if you watch that play, he's got the ball with one arm. It's off to his side. And Owe, who makes a nice play to knock it out, really didn't even do that. Like, he kind of just slapped at the ball. It wasn't like he punched it out or he put his helmet on it. Look, it's the first time he's ever fumbled in his NFL career. So everyone can make a bad mistake, even in their worst moment, right? But it's a kind of play that you go, what are you doing? I mean, how do you not have two hands on the ball there? Like, even if you lose 2 yards, who cares? Doesn't matter. Like, just don't fumble it.
Well, hold on.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Couple things there, because you said multiple times already, I'm not blaming Edwards-Helaire, and then you just went into a detailed description of why you borderline are wondering if Edwards-Helaire was on the take because of the way he was holding the football. and I also heard that on the Arrowhead Addict podcast, which you do a phenomenal job on as well, for just your Kansas City Chiefs talk with Patrick Allen, I heard you went nuts on Edwards-Helaire after the game. You were in full meltdown mode. Is that not accurate?
I mean, by my standards, I do not believe that's accurate. No, if you go back, if you listen, if you're a Chiefs fan, you haven't listened to that podcast, I don't blame you. But B, if you'd like to have some cathartic moments, look, if you go and watch that, if I went into a meltdown, it was on their defense, who just could not have been bothered to play football. Do you know that defense is the second highest paid defense in the NFL? Only the Patriots pay more money to their defense. Like, there's this thought out there nationally that the Chiefs don't care about their defense. That's bull. Like, Kansas City has invested an ungodly amount of money in their defense. You wouldn't know it. Frank Clark at this point should put him on a milk cart. Nobody's seen him in weeks, right? Maybe even years. But they have invested the money. Like, I'll put it this way. If I had to place blame by pie chart, the defense is at least getting 80% of it from me. At least. I mean, Edwards-Helaire deserves some of it. He fumbled the ball. If he doesn't fumble, they get a shot to win it. But, you also get these dopes out there who are like, well, if the offense had scored on one of those couple drives in the fourth quarter, it's like, yeah. You know what else? If the defense didn't give up a touchdown every single time Baltimore had the football down the stretch, they also would have won the game. So, look, I don't blame Edwards-Helaire nearly as much as I do the defense. He made one mistake. They made about 50.
You got me thinking now about the all milk carton team, which you really have to be paying attention to your football team to know these things. So, yes. I mean, but I can tell you, Chicago Bears all milk carton team, Robert Quinn, since he arrived in town, I mean, he showed up this week with a sack, and I think all of Chicago's like, who the hell is 94? Because we hadn't seen him for an over a year plus. Khalil Mack in Chicago has been on the all milk carton team, and so has Eddie Jackson. They both flashed this week, and the Bears went over the Bengals.
Frank Clark is working on a first ballot induction. I mean, look, I will always say he was worth the trade and the money, because he never would have won the Super Bowl without him. He had an unbelievable playoffs that year. And I firmly believe if he's not there, they don't win. However, in the regular season with Kansas City, even though he's made Pro Bowls both years, how I have no idea. Even like he has been a complete non-factor in like 3/4 of the games he's played in the regular season. He's done nothing. He's just the most he's not terrible in the sense of like he can set an edge. He'll have 7 or 8 sacks, but for an $104 million player, he's done nothing by those standards. So, look, that said, to put a ball in this game, I think Kansas City, if they can fix the defense, I think they're fine. Like I don't think losing to the Ravens is any long view problem. Like so what? It's the hardest road game they're going to play all year long. It's fine. You played Cleveland, you played Baltimore. You're 1-1. You're healthy. It's okay. Their defense is a catastrophe right now. And it's talented. I do think they will fix it, but they have to fix it because that thing is a mess.
And for Baltimore, just for the record here, it's a very interesting 1-1. You certainly can make the argument you should have beaten the Raiders, and now you're 2-0 with a win over Kansas City, albeit at home, but still impressive. You're playing at Detroit, tougher game with Denver, but then you got the Colts. You get the Chargers at home. You get the Bengals home. They have a 3-game homestand. Miami looks like crap. The Bears suck. They Baltimore could go on a run right now.
They could. I mean, they're really banged up. Here's my question with Baltimore. I think Baltimore is a good team, and I think they're extremely, as we've already mentioned, extremely well coached. The question I have with the Ravens is, do these injuries just catch up as the year goes on? It's a lot of guys to be missing. It's the NFL. More guys are going to get hurt. And the smaller question I have, that Kansas City game, just the way the Ravens played it, the way they reacted after the game, that was like their Super Bowl. I mean, they have had so many issues beating Kansas City over the years. They win. You just wonder, like, was that one of those games where they were just up for it through the roof and they just can't sustain that level of play? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question, but I give them a hell of a lot of credit. They deserve to win the game. They made the plays at the end. They're going to kill Detroit this weekend. And then you go to Mile High, which we're going to get into Denver here in a little bit. I think it's an interesting game.
I'm just looking at that division. I mean, the Steelers, you beat Buffalo, huge win on the road to start the year. Then you lose to the Raiders. Cleveland, you had Kansas City beat on the road, and you handled the Texans. I mean, right, and the Browns have the Bears this week, and then Cincinnati, you have a win that you didn't. The Bengals clearly look like the worst team in that division. I think that's easily decided 2 weeks in, and even before the season started. You want to take a look at the NFC East, where you've got maybe the worst team in football. I don't know. In the New York Giants,
no, they're not the worst team in football. Have you seen who they share a stadium with?
That's a fair take.
We're gonna get to them in a minute as well. But
the only reason why I would perhaps make an argument for the Jets is Zach Wilson. You can't get any worse, can you?
You're gonna challenge him?
I
mean, I gotta tell you, he might take you up on it.
Yeah, well, it's been ugly, and the guy Sam Darnold in Carolina is doing well, and the New York Jets organization is just straight up on blast. But Washington's 1-1, the Cowboys are 1-1. Dallas could very easily, by the way, that could be a 2-0 team. They play the Bucs incredibly tough, and then they get a win over the Chargers on the road. I don't know. Well, what's your sense of the East? Because right now, I think that if you were sitting there before the season saying, "I'm telling you, the Cowboys are back," you feel pretty good right now.
You know, I kind of look at Dallas's first two games like I look at Kansas City's. You could make a really compelling case it should be 2-0. You could equally make a compelling case it should be 0-2. Like, they could have very easily lost against the Chargers. Herbert throws a pick in the end zone. He takes that ridiculous, 20-yard sack that I know people say shouldn't have been a sack, but then it would have just been intentional grounding, so the end result's the same. I don't know, man. You know what? I think Dallas is the most talented team. But do you believe in Mike McCarthy? I don't. I mean, can you really look at him and say, yeah, he's going to get the job done? I don't know. The Giants stink. The Giants, by the way, welcome to 2021. No team in football plays more like it's 1987 more than the Giants.
The reason why I would say Dallas, who's even remotely in Prescott's league in that division?
Nobody. Oh God, no.
So that's where it's like, yeah, okay, fine, Mike McCarthy, whatever. But when you have the best quarterback, maybe you can overshadow. I mean, when Mike McCarthy was in Green Bay, people, at least for the better part of his tenure there, they thought the dude was great, and then it of course fell apart at the end. So
I don't know. The only caveat, I don't know what to make out of Philadelphia. They kill Atlanta, then they come home, and it was a very bizarre game against San Francisco, 17-11. There was one drive the Eagles had where Hurts hits Quez Watkins for a 91-yard catch, and they didn't score a point on the drive. They tried a Philly special on 4th and goal. It was insane. Did not work. It was weird. Now I hate when people do this, but I'm going to do this for a second. If you take out Hurts' 91-yard throw, just for a second, the rest of the game, he averaged 4 yards an attempt. So I don't know, what to make of him. He was excellent against Atlanta. He had the one big throw against the Niners, but other than that, did nothing. Was not good other than one play. Their defense has been very good, but now Brandon Graham tears his Achilles. It's a huge loss for them. I don't know what to make of him. But I think they're at least decent. I think they're at least a 7-win team, which I didn't think before the season.
The refs also took away a huge touchdown play where Rieger stepped out of bounds. That's another thing. But here's my message for the Eagles. Look, I get it. You're playing Jalen Hurts, and you're going to do that. Your best quarterback's on the bench. You want to win this year? Get him out there, baby.
Minshew?
Yes.
I like Minshew, but I don't know, man. That might be a bridge too far for me.
I'm going there. I am walking down that bridge with my shirt off and even my pants off.
Well, then that's a bridge that I hope is close to the public.
Let's go, Gardner. If Jalen Hurts gets hurt, which is possible, I suppose, because he's a quarterback in the NFL, perhaps even likely. That's a very dangerous job. Gardner Minshew will roll in Philly with that team. Whenever it happens, I'm just
okay.
That's just a little. I'm forever in on Minshew until I'm given a reason to not be. But let's do into the future. So we're looking at the Panthers, the Raiders, and the Broncos. Of those three, who do you think is for real?
Of the three, I think the Panthers are the most for real. I picked them as a wild card team on our preview show, and I'm sticking with it. I don't think they're going to win the division. I don't think they're better than Tampa Bay stretch, but Darnold looks kind of like that Tannehill-esque situation, right? Like, hey, I'm not stuck with complete garbage anymore.
I'd say better.
Yeah, playing very well. And we both talked about it because we both felt the same way. Like, has weapons, offensive-minded head coach. Oh, look at that. He can play football. Stunning. So I like them. I'm not overly impressed with their wins. I mean, the Jets stink, and the Saints are, I think, going to be about a 500 team this year. So it's not a bad win, but it's okay. They'll kill Houston on Thursday night. They're going to have some tough games ahead. But if you look at their schedule, they don't play a lot of teams that you're like, man, that's really going to be hard. I mean, you got the Falcons two times, right? You then also draw the AFC South, which, excuse me, you don't draw the AFC South. They're playing the AFC South this weekend. They are drawing the AFC East, which, other than Buffalo, 3 very winnable games in that slate. Of course, they already played the Jets. Like, I think Carolina get to 10. The Raiders, I think, are better than I thought. Like, I thought the Raiders would win like 6 games. Now I kind of think they're going to win like 8 to 9. The problem I have is everything's gone perfectly for the Raiders, right? Like, Carr is out of his mind. Max Crosby looks like Bruce Smith. I've been around long enough, Carm, to just know, like, usually guys become what they become over the course of a year, right? Like, guys become what they are. If you're a 260 hitter your whole career and you hit 370 in April, it usually means in some month you're going to hit like 190. It just does. Like, that's kind of what happens. But I do like that they've beaten the Ravens and the Steelers. I think that gives them a real leg up. Denver, to me, I got to see way more. You're beating the Giants and the Jags. I don't care. You get the Jets next, you'll get the 3-0, but then you got a lot of tough games.
You do, but you also have a ton of winnable games. Let's look at Denver a little more closely.
Okay.
Jets, 3-0.
Yep.
Baltimore at home. And for everything we just said about the Ravens, Vic Fangio scheming for him. I don't know. That you can win that game. At Pittsburgh, what are the Steelers? I'm not sure. Feels winnable. The Raiders at home, at Cleveland, tough. But then you got the NFC East, Washington, Dallas, Philly, the Chargers, okay, fine, tough game, and the Chiefs twice in the back end. But you also have Detroit, Cincinnati. I don't know. There's winnable games all over the place for the Broncos.
There are. Here, my concern is, again, my thing I just said about being a 260 hitter. Teddy Bridgewater's entire career has been kind of like a guy. And when they play Baltimore, when they play Pittsburgh, I feel like that's going to be a problem. Like, you're going to have to do like big time stuff. I don't know if you can do it against those types of teams.
That's fair. But also the Broncos have not had a guy like for a while now. And so now they have to have a guy, which might be enough.
I guess also we should clarify, like, I don't think Denver's going to win 6 games. I think Denver and the Raiders are going to be about an 8 to 9 win team, which Denver, by the way, that's exactly what I thought they'd be before the year. The Raiders, I thought would win about 6. So I've improved. They've changed my outlook on them. But I don't think either team is like a contender. I just don't see that. I think you want to argue they could be the 7th seed in the AFC. Okay. But if I'm looking at the AFC, so all right, so somebody has to win the South. Okay. Kansas City, to me, unless they get hurt, even with this defense, Mahomes will drag their worthless asses to 13 wins. He just will. Buffalo is the best team in the AFC East. The North, Cleveland is better than either of those teams. I think Baltimore is better than either of those teams. So if you're doing the math, you got Buffalo, those two, somebody in the South, the Chiefs. I think the Chargers are also better than both those teams. So that leaves one spot, right? Like now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe one of those teams just shocks and they win 12 games. But I think that's a big ask just based off the rosters. The Raiders give them a lot of credit. I just feel like that's one of those things like everything in the world has gone right, including that Monday night game where they should have lost like 8 different times and somehow won the game. So that's where I land on.
That's fair. But I just want to throw a bow the way of Derek Carr. Every time I put the Raiders on, the guy's playing great football.
Listen, he's underrated, man. And that is one hill I've died on forever. He's a good quarterback. Like I always hear people like, what about Baker? What about this guy? I would take Derek Carr over Baker Mayfield 1,000 times out of 1,000. And not just because he's 2 weeks. Like I've always felt that way.
Derek Carr can throw the deep ball. He's got nice touch on the underneath ball. He for the most part, it's very rare where you look at him like, what the hell are you doing?
Right.
I just a little bouquet your way, buddy. Derek Carr's been playing excellent, and the Raiders are interesting. Go John Gruden.
So you believe in all three of those teams?
I really do. Like I think that they're all. I'm certainly not selling. Of the 2-0s, and I picked them. I have them in the playoffs, but like you look at Arizona. Tough that the Niners are out well here, man. Like that, this is going to be. It's just such a tough division. So like if I was going to punt on a 2-0, I might pick the Cardinals right now more than anyone else. Even though and also like the whole built to last thing, right? I mean, Kyler is super fun, but is he going to can he actually stay healthy? And then you got a lot of old guys over there too. But here, let's move on and take a little peek at Tua and Miami. The Dolphins just getting absolutely annihilated. I picked them this week, which was a nightmare. By the way, I'm 3-7 in my pool here in 18th place among Chicago media, which is super freaking embarrassing. But I just want to throw out that the Dan Hampton, the Hall of Famer, picked week 1 and went 1-4. Carm went 2-3 this week. Verderame. So I slightly improved. But what do we think here? Tua now hurt and hasn't distinguished himself, and you're asking the question: will he be with the Dolphins next year?
I don't think this is even a difficult question. No, I really has anyone watched him play this year? Now, of course, in week 2 he got hurt. He played I think one series. So I actually watched him. I saw that series, but man, he looks awful. And their offensive line stinks. Like I'm not just saying it's all on him, but we all know the smoke that was around them this offseason. And now you come out of that offseason, they beat the Pats largely because the Pats fumbled in the red zone at the end of the game. He did not play well in that game. It was game managing to the hilt. Comes out, they're playing Buffalo. Buffalo's bringing these slot corner blitzes off the left side, which Tua sees. He's a left-handed quarterback, and he's just getting pummeled. Sees these guys coming, and he's just standing there and getting blitzed to death. I don't understand what's happening. Now he's hurt, which I'm not, it's not his fault, but he's hurt. He was hurt a lot in Alabama. So that's a concern. We'll see if he plays this week, or it's Jacoby Brissett going against the Raiders. I don't know. I got to tell you, if I'm the Raiders, I'd rather it's Tua. I really would. I would far rather see Tua. Brissett, I feel like, is actually borderline competent. And I don't know that Tua is. I really feel like I wanted to see him come out this year. I wanted to see, okay, he had a full off season, normal off season. What does he got? Carm, I get it. It's early. He does not look good.
The first time I saw him throw the football in an NFL game, I was like, I don't think so. That was my reaction. So, I mean, you can play unorthodox and be good, and first impressions can be dead wrong. But I haven't gotten past that with him. Let's just do 2 more topics and into the future, though. Which NFC West team do you like the most right now? And that is a very interesting question that you are proposing here, Matt Verderame, because I don't know. I'm in on Seattle. I'm in on the Rams. I think the Cardinals are super interesting, and the Niners are playing great football. And we got 3 2-0s and 1 1-1, and everybody's got a positive point differential. The Niners a little sloppy this week, but they got to win.
So I picked Seattle for the year, and I'm going to stick with them because I still think they have the best quarterback, and their team is more than good enough to win 12 games, whatever. Right now, it's the Rams. The Rams have played the best. They annihilated Chicago and then went on the road and beat a pretty desperate Indianapolis team. Stafford always worries me a little. Like there's always a little bit of that just YOLO game, with him. Like he'll throw a ball where he just shouldn't throw it and get picked off. He did it once against Indy. But I think they're the best team right now in the division. This is a big test against the Bucs this week. They are, and you mentioned it earlier, they're a 1-point favorite on WinBet, which of course is our great partner. On other books, they're a 1-point underdog. So the line's all over the place with them. They opened as a 1.5-point favorite almost everywhere. But I think it's the Rams right now. I think it's the Rams. But I still do believe in Seattle. And look, you got to give Arizona credit. They're 2-0, but I'm kind of with you. Like they should have lost to Minnesota. That was a ridiculous game that, of course, the Vikings found a way to lose because they're the Vikings. But like, I don't know if you're a Cardinals fan, you come out of that game feeling fantastic.
No, it's a tough way to win. We're not relying on kickers to miss 30-some-odd yard field goals at the end of games is not sustainable. And you also did it against the Vikings, so that's further plays into the Arizona concern. I don't know, like the Rams, for those who went out on a limb, not a huge limb, but who were like, I'm telling you, the Rams, Super Bowl. Carm, I was in there. You're feeling very good about it. But I don't know. Garoppolo is just super interesting, man. He looks great, and then he just looks incompetent. But yet they win when he's on the field. So I think the San Francisco love, if you're on that train, I think you feel fine if you're the Niners right now. You know you can play a lot better. Speaking of the other train, Jaguars and Jets, who's more worried about their quarterback right now? I think that's a no-brainer just because of Trevor's pedigree. Neither of them look good, but Zach Wilson.
I gotta tell you.
Yeah?
The only reason I'm going with the Jets should be more worried is because of the pedigree. Because Trevor Lawrence has been awful. Awful. And you can make the argument that you should worry more about Lawrence. He has a better group of weapons around him.
That's true. And
the offensive lines for both teams are not great, but I would argue Jacksonville's is actually slightly better. He has been hideous. I saw a stat the other day. I think it was Pro Football Focus, that 36% of his attempts have been uncatchable. That's impossible. Like 36%, which is the highest in the league, by the way. 36%? It's more than it's more than 1 out of 3. I mean, so you've got that. He's got as many picks as Wilson. So 5 picks. Now, again, I think there have been more high-end throws out of Lawrence that I've seen as well. And his pedigree does speak to, okay, look, he can do it, right? Which is why my answer is the Jets. But he's been hideous. Now, Wilson, I wrote about this in Stacking the Box. I'm going to give a very quick rundown as to why I think they are in major trouble with him. He was great at BYU last year. He was great for 1 year. I remember talking to league sources in personnel departments about him coming out, and there was a general thought among some that I'm worried at BYU that everything was perfect. He had a great line, really good run game, and he played one really good season. He comes out, and what do the Jets do? As only the Jets can do. Here's a 34-year-old offensive coordinator, Mike LaFleur, who has never been an OC. Here's a defensive-minded head coach who's never been a head coach, and Robert Saleh. So both those guys are learning their own jobs right now. Then you've got Wilson, who has absolutely nobody behind him who's ever thrown a pass in the NFL. Nobody. So Belichick, who gets him to throw 4 picks and a half of football, right? Wilson's going to the sideline. Well, who the hell's helping him? Who's there to support this kid? Nobody is the answer, by the way. Their line stinks. He has no time to process anything. Meanwhile, in all these other spots, Jacksonville has C.J. Beathard, Trey Lance with Garoppolo, Fields with Dalton, and Foles. Say whatever you want. How have the Jets not traded for Nick Foles? Like, give up a 7th-round pick and just help this kid. But the Jets can't be bothered because they're the Jets. So I think this thing's only going to get worse. But I'll tell you right now, he is going to have a rough day in Denver. That is a brutal spot.
I think you're spot on, and the proof is in the pudding with the Jets as far as Sam Darnold again with what he's doing and how they're supporting quarterbacks. And sure, trade for Nick Foles, who by the way, I can make an argument should be starting for the Bears this week if Andy Dalton can't go. If you're trying to protect Justin Fields, which, by the way, we have to talk about our bet here because if Fields starts, I think our bet is null and void.
Yeah, unfortunately, I believe it's a stalemate.
Yeah,
which is tragic.
It is tragic because I had it, but that's okay. The reason why also with Lawrence, like the one throw to Marvin Jones in the corner of the end zone,
yes,
we haven't seen that from Wilson. Like
that's it.
That's
right.
Okay, here's okay. There's the flash play, and so it's there in theory. But we look, he's scuffling along. Ben Heisler matters. He's the managing editor at FanSided, which is sweeping the nation. Damn it. And, of course, working with our partner, WinBet. Go to winbet.com for all your gambling needs. All right, Benny, welcome in here as we get to week 3. We got, 6 games on the slate, and we're going to start with the Bengals at the Steelers. Pittsburgh's a 4.5-point favorite. Total's 4-4. There's breaking news as we're recording right now on Ben Roethlisberger with a pec injury, which makes things even more interesting for this game. I bet this line's going to move a bunch. Does it feel even – can you jump in here, Ben? What do you think?
It's a little bit concerning regarding Roethlisberger's status because going into this week, I thought the Steelers were one of my favorite bets of the week. This is a team that was very uncharacteristic in week 2 at home. You got the Raiders on a short week. They had that overtime win in week 1. Perfect opportunity for the Steelers coming off a big road win to come home and take care of business against a team that's projected to finish last in the AFC West. Did not happen. Derek Carr, for the 3rd straight game, threw for over 350 yards and a couple of touchdowns. His 382 yards, guys, against the Steelers was more than 110 yards than the Steelers had given up in passing yards all of last year. So it was just a weird, uncharacteristic game for them. And I fully expected them to come in against the Bengals, who, remember, Joe Burrow gave up 3 straight turnovers to the Bears last week. I felt like this was going to be a perfect opportunity for the defense to bounce back. I still expect that to be the case. I'm leaning under in this game for now. But yeah, Ben Roethlisberger's health is going to be pretty serious. If he's able to go, I'll lean on the Steelers at -4.5. But if he is unable to go, just go ahead and take the under and grab it before the line really starts to dive out.
My initial reaction, first of all, I don't care about the pec injury. He can't throw the ball anyway. My initial reaction was that this is a classic. The Steelers will bounce back. They will throttle Cincinnati. They'll win the game like 28-7. But then I thought about it a little bit more, even without the pec injury. They can't score. Like, they have no ability to score a point. This was a problem for the Steelers last year. It's been a problem early this year. You say, oh, they won 23-16 in Buffalo. They got a block punt for a touchdown. They can't score. Like, I keep going. I think Cincinnati's going to cover the spread. I think Pittsburgh wins, but I feel like it's going to be something like 19-17, and Chris Boswell's got to win it at the gun or something. Like, it's just – and Cincinnati's kind of weird. Like, I feel like offensively they have the weapons to do some things. Now, the problem is I don't know if they can block Pittsburgh. And that's where, if you want to take Pittsburgh to cover, I think that's where you get it. Like, they get to sack Burrow 7 times, and this game just goes totally off the rails. But I've watched every snap of the Steelers, and I think their offense is hideous. So I will actually take the 4.5 points.
Cincinnati's not good. And for the record, Verderame has been riding the Steelers even through 11-0 last year. Pretty much every week you're like, and then, by the way, you were proven right in the end. But like
they can't score.
Every week they were winning. You're like, I still think they suck. And I guess
they did. They won one playoff game.
I guess you won out. All right, Chargers and Chiefs. Kansas City coming off a loss to the Ravens in an amazing Sunday night game. It was thrilling. I loved it. I don't know how the Chiefs have become the Patriots for me, but somehow they have. No disrespect to my friends in Kansas City, which is you, Ben, living in KC. A 6.5-point favorite. Those Chiefs are with a 55.5-point total. What do you got?
So the Chiefs, despite how good they've been, and make no mistake, that's a team that, with Harrison Butker being one of the best kickers in the league, they went downfield in 3 plays, couple big plays to Travis Kelce. We're in perfect position to get to the game-winning field goal. Andy Reid takes the ball out of Mahomes' hands, gives it to Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He fumbles. The rest is history. Baltimore's able to hold on and win that game. Big fourth down play for Lamar Jackson. But the Chiefs have been atrocious, and Ian McMillan wrote about this over at FanSided, at covering the spread over the last several games. Like, good teams win, great teams cover. And for as great as the Chiefs have been, they have not been a good covering team, especially during the second half of last year. And so far into the start of this season, they're 0-2 against the spread. I like the Chargers to hang around here. Justin Herbert came into this start of the season number 2 at WinBet in MVP odds. It was him. Number 1 was Patrick Mahomes. He slipped a little bit. I think this is an opportunity to maybe buy low on Herbert if you believe that he's going to be a viable MVP candidate. But I just can't trust Kansas City to cover right now, even after a bad loss against the Ravens, where you'd expect them to be completely dominant. And Andy Reid has been dominant against the AFC West over the course of his time in Kansas City. I just don't trust them right now. And the Chargers have plenty of weapons and an improving defense. They did really well, I thought, against Dallas. So I like the Chargers to hang around here. Kansas City still gets the job done. They still get the win, but I don't expect them to cover at all.
The Chiefs are 1-12 against the spread in the last 13 games.
That's right. That's the stat.
The only game they've covered is the AFC title game where they beat the brakes off Buffalo. That's it. And you couldn't pay me to pick Kansas City to cover this spread. Has anyone seen them defensively? They're giving up 500 yards a game. By the way, here's a bet I would make 10 times out of 10 if I were a betting man. My God, tease the over and the point spread. Like, tease it for the Chargers. So just tease the Chargers up like 12 and a half and then tease the over. And you're going to cash by halftime. I don't think the Chargers can stop Kansas City. Like, Derwin James makes it interesting because I think he's the one guy who actually can put the clamps somewhat on Kelsey. They have nobody who can guard Tyreek Hill. So I expected the Chiefs, look, they'll do what they do. They'll score 30-plus points because they're them. And I think they will win the game despite making me physically nauseous for 3 hours during it as they continue to just give up every play under the sun. I think this is a game where it's like 38, 33, and you walk out of it, and if you're a Chiefs fan, you go, well, they won, but we still can't stop anybody. So we'll see. That being said, with the way they've been the last couple of years, I wouldn't be surprised if they came out and won by 20. But they're terrible defensively. I don't know how you could pick right now that they're going to blow anybody out.
I'm going to make it my lock of the week, by the way, right here on Stacking the Box. Carm is telling you, you know what motivates teams? Bad losses. And the Chiefs just had a bad loss in front of everybody. I think Kansas City crushes the Chargers this week. If you can give me all the 1-12 in the last 13s, I'm going against both of you. It feels good. Kansas City by double digits over the Fighting Herberts. All right. Just for the record here, I love being contrarian in the moment. Seattle is a 2-point favorite at Minnesota, which, by the way, Ben Heisler, you know what's going on at WinBet and around the NFL. You're the managing editor at FanSided. How do we have 3 totals that are all 55.5 this week? The Chargers, how is that possible? 55.5 for the Chargers of the Chiefs, Seattle, Minnesota, Tampa Bay, and the Rams as we're talking right now. Seattle's a 2-point favorite, and there's that total 55.5. It's an anomaly. We have an anomaly.
Bit of an anomaly with 3 consecutive games that we're talking about, all with a total of 55.5. But if you go look at historical trends, 54, 55, 56, those are fairly common numbers. Just happens to fall on there, at least for this week. This is a game that I'm really torn about because Seattle blew it against Tennessee last week. Just completely let that one slip away. And then Derrick Henry took over in the second half. I had concerns about him, guys, heading into the start of the season. There was a great stat about 2,000-yard rushers that the following year, they're usually down about 500-something yards the following season just because, for whatever reason, there's just too much strain on the body after running that amount of times. But Henry looked outstanding in the second half. They relied on him. That's their bread and butter. Went back to what had been working and been effective for them. With Minnesota, they've hung tough in 2 games, and they've let it slip away. You talk about week 1, that overtime loss to Cincinnati on the road. Same thing again. They go back on the road, nearly pull it off against the Cardinals. Either things are going to unravel very quickly for Minnesota, or I think they have a dominating performance at home against the Seahawks. I'm leaning towards the unraveling side after 2 real bad losses. I'm going to fade the Carm perspective here. I like Seattle, especially with how well they played in the Dome in week 1, to come to Minnesota and just trounce the Vikings defense. 0-3 start, Mike Zimmer on the hot seat in Minnesota.
Yeah, I look forward to the Vikings just getting blown out of the building. You just can see this coming. Look, the Vikings have blown 2 games so far they had no business losing. The Bengals game, they got themselves down. Then they almost won in overtime. Then they lost. Then the Cardinals game, if you haven't heard the Vikings radio announcers calling that kick at the end, you need to go and listen to it right now, okay? Or at least on the podcast. So go. It is amazing. I continue to look at Minnesota and say they have a lot of talent, but it just doesn't seem to play for them ever. Like, I feel like for years I've looked at them and felt like they've had a lot of talent. And then you're like, oh, they won 8 games. Okay. I don't know whether that's a Zimmer problem, a Cousins problem, a combination. You just talked about Carm. You just mentioned you think the Chiefs will crush the Chargers because of the bad loss. Seattle had a much worse loss than Kansas City did. You're at home against a lesser team. Like, at least Baltimore is good. It's a road game, whatever. I mean, if anybody's going to come out pissed this week, it's Seattle. And you can't afford to start 1-2 in that division. Can't do it. So I think they come out and they win.
All right, let's go to, I guess, my favorite game of the week, although there's a lot of good games this week. But Tampa Bay and the Rams is super interesting. Rams are a 1-point favorite at home. Again, that total 55.5. This is NFC Championship, perhaps, preview theme. I like the Rams, but Ben, where are you going?
I'm fading the Rams here. I'm going to go with Tampa Bay, especially if I can get them as a 1-point dog in this matchup. I think Brady going to Los Angeles isn't going to scare him. I think he's seen every single defensive front that you can play against him. And Brandon Staley is no longer there. So there's been some adjustments. And you saw the Rams not really play all that well on the defensive side. Any team's going to look pretty good against the Bears defensively in week 1. So I'm kind of tossing that aside. I think the Buccaneers are able to handle it. I think it's a close game. And there's this crazy stat going around. I think it was from Dove Kleiman, who pointed out that Tom Brady is about, 14 touchdowns away from the total amount of touchdowns he threw for in his 20s. And he's age 44 right now, in his 40s. Like, what he's doing right now is flat out insane. He continues to put up just impressive numbers, 9 touchdowns for the first 2 games of the season. I just don't know, after Jalen Ramsey tries to neutralize somebody, maybe it's Mike Evans, maybe it's Antonio Brown, maybe he moves around and covers Chris Godwin in the slot. After that, I just don't know who they pick up. There's just too many weapons for Brady to be successful. And if you're the Rams, you're not going to be able to run on them, whether it's Darrell Henderson, whether it's Sony Michel. And do you want Stafford throwing 40, 50 times? He's capable, but then it's the Matt Stafford of old in Detroit. I like the Buccaneers to cover here, especially as underdogs.
I think the Rams are going to win the game, and my reasoning is Tampa's not going to go 17-0. This is one of the toughest games they're going to play all year. And the Bucs quietly have been garbage on defense first 2 games of the year. They have not been good. Now, their run defenses, but teams have just said, well, the hell with that. Let's just throw it. And Tampa's not stopped them. I mean, teams have just, the Cowboys and the Falcons both ran up a lot of points on them, just throwing the ball. Now, of course, the Falcons being the Falcons also graciously threw 2 pick sixes at the end of the game. They couldn't let things get too close. But I think Stafford's going to throw for a lot of yards in this game. I really do. The one thing with Brady I always worry about is if you can get, and this is really any quarterback, but especially an immobile one, if you can get pressure up the middle, that's when you can start to cause a problem. Well, you have Aaron Donald. Like, if anybody can get pressure immediately up the middle of the field, it's him. I think this is a great game. I think it lives up to the hype. I think the Rams win by like a field goal.
I'm already excited about this one and I don't know what it's going to take for me not to want to fade the Buccaneers. Even though they won the Super Bowl last year, I still don't buy them, which is completely moronic, admittedly. But there's just something, yes. I don't know what it just Brady, I just think he's overrated. The guy never did anything. All right, Green Bay and San Francisco, the Niners, a 3.5-point favorite. The total of this one's 49. Ben, are the Pack back, baby, routing the Lions? Aaron Rodgers telling the Trolls to shut it. Do we feel a resurgent Pack?
First of all, if anything goes viral from this week's edition of Stacking the Box, I hope it's Carm going, Tom Brady, what has he done? What has he done in his career? And that there's just no context, nothing whatsoever, just blows up, the internet explodes.
I saw a TikTok last night. This 10-year-old was talking about how winning's overrated, and it's got 700,000 views, and it was basically the take. I should have done it. Brady, overrated. Give me Rodgers. Okay, we can do that another time. Go ahead, Ben.
No, the kid's been watching a little bit too much Ted Lasso, and wins and losses no longer are applicable for this kid. I don't know if the Packers are back because there's still some major concerns, but I do like them, especially as 3.5-point underdogs on the road at San Francisco. It's been a place where Rodgers has struggled historically over the last several years. You think back to the NFC Championship game from a couple of years ago, but Robert Saleh, no longer there. It's kind of what we just talked about with the previous game. New defensive coordinator in place, and teams are trying to start to figure some things out as they adjust to their new coordinator. So I don't anticipate Rodgers going out to San Francisco or Santa Clara, wherever that stadium is, and blowing out the 49ers. They're still a really talented team. But right now, the 49ers have no running backs that are healthy. I mean, they're going to their sixth or seventh string guys. Yeah. Brandon Ayuk still hasn't gotten involved in the offense yet, and that's a very solid weapon for them. The 49ers are a really good team, but I don't look at anything that they've done so far this year as particularly impressive, especially letting the Lions hang around in week one. So I think the Packers come in. Rodgers finally gets himself going through the air. He had some great throws on Monday night. I do like Green Bay, especially as 3.5-point underdogs in that game to be able to cover on Sunday night.
I don't know who I'm going to pick to win yet. I haven't figured that out. I gotta make my picks by they go out Thursday morning. I think the Packers cover. I will say, though, the one thing that concerns me in this game for the Packers, their offensive line has not been very good. And the Niners can get home. The Niners have guys, and Armstead and Bosa up front, who can get home and cause problems. Now, here's the flip side of this. That's why I think they'll cover. Garoppolo doesn't scare anybody, especially if they can't run the ball. And their corners are terrible. Now you've got Verrett's hurt. He's out for the year. You've got Emmanuel Mosley, who's questionable right now. He's banged up. Lenore, Josh Norman. It's just a bunch of guys, man. That is, if they can't get to Rodgers, he's going to go nuts. I mean, that's the concern. So I think they will cover. I know that Shanahan is going to do something. And anybody on that team that's a running back is going to have a decent game because Shanahan will just scheme it that way. And the Packers front seven is awful. But I am leaning toward picking the Packers to win. I definitely picking them to cover.
All right, last one, y'all. NFC East battle. It's an all-time classic. I feel like we should get Summerall and Madden going on here. Eagles, Cowboys, Dallas, a 4-point favorite. The Fighting Prescotts, maybe the class of the NFC East that we were talking about earlier. 51.5 point, the total here. You buying in on Dallas, Ben?
I think the line is set perfectly for this game. I do think as the week goes on, you're going to see the Cowboys go back to being those trendy favorites that they weren't in week one, but ended up becoming in week two. And they rewarded the bettors. They were 3-point dogs on the road against the Chargers, ended up winning outright. So now the public is back on America's team, and I think they're going to move this line to either 4.5, possibly even 5, especially with the Eagles not taking care of business late in the second half, or they kind of let this slip away. I'm a buyer. I talked to you guys about this in Jalen Hurts. I think he's a really good quarterback. I think he's set up in a scheme that's effective for him, and it's another one of those situations where Nick Sirianni has proven to be the coach that may not win the press conference, but may actually win a few more games than you expect him to. I think the play for me in this game is the over on 51.5. I expect Dallas to be more of the offensive team that we saw from them in week one against Tampa. I thought the Chargers game planned them really well, and I thought they made some not real bad mistakes, but they just didn't move the ball that we're normally used to seeing from them. And conversely, I don't think their defense is as good as it looked in week two as well. I think this is going to be a back and forth game. You're going to see some big plays from Amari Cooper, from CeeDee Lamb on the Dallas side. Maybe Tony Pollard continues to have another big part of his season. And for Philadelphia, we've already seen some great deep plays from Devontae Smith, from Jalen Reagor as well. I think you might see a little bit more Miles Sanders in this game. so many big plays are happening that it's hard for me to look at this total at 51.5 and feel like the line is just not big enough. Like there needs to be more points in this game. So I like the over as opposed to taking a side for Monday Night Football.
By the way, when the Chiefs play Dallas, the over-under should be set at about 78.
Still take over.
Yeah. Oh my God. I mean, the punters, why even dress? Just get another receiver out there. So I like the Cowboys to win, but I like the Eagles to cover this game. Like you're so right, Ben, in the sense that like the public, they love Dallas. Oh, you get all those casual bettors who are just Cowboys fans from the Aikman, Smith, Irvin, Emmitt Smith days who they love them. I watched that Steelers Cowboys game, and you look at the score and you're like, oh, 2017, some good defense. If you watch that game, it was a horrifically played game defensively with Herbert throwing 2 mind-numbing picks and then a bunch of penalties that stopped promising drives. That game could have easily been 38-35. So I agree with you on the over. I love that opinion. I'm with you. I think it's one of those games where Dallas is always up by like 9. And then at the end of the game, like Philly will just jam one in the end zone. They'll lose 30-27. I think Philly's going to cover. I think Philly's actually better than I thought. I thought Philly was going to be really bad this year. I don't think they're an above 500 team, but I think they're going to win 7 games or so, which is not bad. Not bad for a rebuilding team.
Hurts gets hurt. Minshew comes in. Eagles win the East, and they're a surprise playoff team. Watch out for Gardner Minshew when he gets his chance out of Jacksonville. 37-11 as a Jaguar. 37 touchdowns, 11 picks. Nobody likes that.
That wasn't his record.
I understand. Exactly.
Why you would want – I listen, Minshew's as fun as anybody for like a game or two. Why you would want to lose the beauty that is Jalen Hurts on a football field for Gardner Minshew, Carm, is beyond me.
Carm's been out of his mind for this. I don't think there is any. Wants Gardner Minshew.
I don't think there is anything more beautiful than Gardner Minshew. Gardner Minshew goes cross country in an RV. Gardner Minshew pulls up at the Super Bowl and sits with Carm and has a great interview. I'm completely utterly biased from just my 15-minute hang with Gardner Minshew, but he was a good quarterback in Jacksonville. Look what Trevor Lawrence is doing down there right now. Minshew mania. Bring him to a city near you. Give me. In his prime, my guy for all time. How is his name slipping my mind, Ben? Not Jay Cutler, but
no idea where you're going with this.
Yeah, another former Bears quarterback.
No, who came off the bench for Cuddy and was Josh McCown.
Josh McCown.
He's my Josh McCown to the 10th power.
That's right, or as a Chicago sports radio caller would call him, Josh McNown. You get this McNown guy in there. That guy's unbelievable.
I love McCown. I was a McCownie.
McCowan. Yeah. 5 different ways to pronounce his name.
This podcast is brought to you by FanSided. Join our community of over 300 sites from sports to pop culture and everything in between.